You know what hurts more than betrayal from a stranger? Betrayal from the people you thought would love you unconditionally. Last Christmas, my family made a choice that shattered me. They lied, schemed, and threw me away like I was nothing. But here's the thing about being underestimated for too long. Eventually, the one they cast aside comes back stronger. And I promise you, the revenge I took made them regret every single cruel word. Before I dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a like if you believe that family loyalty should be earned, not demanded. And as you listen, let me know in the comments, have you ever been betrayed by the very people who were supposed to protect you? Now, let me take you back to the night that changed everything. I grew up in a small town outside Denver, Colorado. My name's Amelia, but everyone calls me Mia. And if there's one thing I've always been, it's dependable. You know the type. The one who picks up the pieces when everything falls apart. The one who drops her own plans to make sure everyone else is okay. For years, I thought that's what family was about. Give, 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 and they'll love you back. Turns out, I couldn't have been more wrong. I wasn't born into wealth or prestige, but I worked hard. I put myself through nursing school, picked up overnight shifts at the hospital, and still managed to help my little brother Ethan get through college. All my parents like to brag about Ethan, the golden child, studying engineering at CU Boulder. They conveniently left out the part where I was the one covering half his tuition bills when Dad's business took a downturn. But I didn't mind. At least not at first. That's what family does, right? Christmas was always my favorite holiday. I'd decorate the tree weeks in advance, bake cookies, and even splurge on thoughtful gifts, even when money was tight. But last year, everything I thought I knew about family came crashing down. It started with a phone call. I had just finished a brutal 12-hour shift in the ER, the kind where the smell of antiseptic clings to your skin and your feet feel like they've turned into blocks of concrete. I was exhausted but excited. I'd been looking forward to Christmas dinner all week. It was the one time I'd get to sit around the table with Mom, Dad, Ethan, and my older sister Claire, who had recently gotten engaged to her fiancé Mark. When my phone buzzed and Mom's name appeared on the screen, I answered with a smile, expecting her usual request. "Mia, can you pick up an extra pie?" But the tone in her voice was off, flat, almost rehearsed. "Mia, honey," she began, "about Christmas dinner?" My stomach sank instantly. Something in the way she drew out the words made my grip on the phone tighten. "Well," she hesitated, "this year we're keeping things a little formal. You know how Claire is meeting Mark's family for the first time, and, well, we just thought it might be better." I laughed, though it came out sharp and humorless. "I am immediate family, Mom." "Of course you are, sweetheart," she said quickly. Too quickly. "But you know how these professional families can be. Mark's parents are doctors, his sister's a lawyer. We just don't want anything to, seem out of place." There it was. The gut punch. Translation: they thought I, a nurse who worked overnight shifts and sometimes showed up in scrubs with messy hair, wasn't good enough to sit at their table. I swallowed hard, my voice tight. "So, what? Because I don't make six figures or wear designer clothes, I'm not polished enough to meet them?" "Don't make this about you," Mom snapped. "It's about Claire. We just want her to make a good impression." That silence after her words said more than anything. My own mother was ashamed of me. I barely remember hanging up. I just remember sitting in my tiny apartment, the hum of the refrigerator filling the air, my heart pounding in my ears. I wanted to believe I misheard, that maybe she didn't mean it like that. But then came the confirmation. Later that night, my cousin Leah texted me. "Mia, I need to tell you something." I overheard Claire talking to Aunt June. She said she didn't want you at Christmas because she was worried you'd make her look working class in front of Mark's family. Working class, like it was some dirty word. like saving lives at the hospital somehow made me less them. I sat there staring at the screen, my vision blurring with tears. Claire, the sister whose car I'd helped pay off when she was drowning in debt. Claire, the same woman whose engagement ring insurance payments I'd quietly covered for 3 months when she lost her job. She was embarrassed by me. Christmas came, and for the first time in my entire life, I wasn't at the table. I tried to keep busy. I went for a long drive, treated myself to Chinese takeout, even pulled an extra shift at the hospital just to avoid sitting alone. But when I finally caved and opened social media, there it was, a photo of my family, smiling in front of the Christmas tree. Claire, beaming in her sleek red dress, Mark's parents beside her, Ethan with his arm around his girlfriend, Mom and Dad, glowing with pride. I wasn't even mentioned in the caption. The perfect Christmas with family. I felt the crack inside me widen into something else, something darker. Because if I wasn't good enough to sit at their table, then maybe they weren't good enough to keep benefiting from my sacrifices. And that was the moment I decided this wasn't just going to be a Christmas I'd never forget. It was going to be the year I reminded them exactly who I was. The days after Christmas were the hardest. The hospital halls were still draped in leftover garlands, nurses handing out stale cookies from the staff room, patients with no visitors staring blankly at muted TV screens. I threw myself into work, picking up every shift I could, because the moment I slowed down, the silence of my apartment pressed in on me like a weight. At night, I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying that phone call with Mom, the words, "We just want Claire to make a good impression," echoing until my chest burned. I thought of Leah's text, those 2 words, working class, like they were a brand seared into my skin. And no matter how much I tried to push it aside, I couldn't shake the image of that family photo. All of them smiling, laughing, plates full of food, their faces warm with belonging. And me, erased. 2 days after Christmas, I finally broke. I called Claire. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice dripping with annoyance. "Mia, I'm busy. Can you make it quick?" "Why?" My voice cracked, but I pushed forward. "Why didn't you want me there?" Silence. Then a sigh. "Don't do this." "Don't do what? Ask why my own sister didn't want me at the table?" Her tone sharpened. "Because it was important, okay? Mark's family is different. They're classy, polished. They're used to a certain standard, and you—" She hesitated, but it was too late. "You just don't fit that image." It was like being stabbed in the chest. I whispered, "After everything I've done for you, your bills, your ring, your car, I wasn't good enough?" Her voice turned cold. "Mia, I never asked you to do those things. You chose to. Don't throw them in my face now." I couldn't breathe. My hands shook around the phone. "So that's it? I'm an embarrassment to you?" "You're twisting my words," she snapped. "God, you're so dramatic. This is why we didn't want any issues at dinner." And then she hung up. I sat there staring at my reflection in the black screen of my phone, tears blurring my eyes until the edges of my apartment melted into nothing. My chest ached like someone had hollowed it out with a spoon. The next day, I tried Mom. "Mom, I don't understand. Why didn't you defend me?" Her voice was clipped. "Mia, you need to let this go. Claire's future depends on making a good impression. You wouldn't understand. You're not in her position." "Her position?" My laugh was bitter. "You mean engaged to a man whose family looks down on people like me?" "Mia," she barked. "Don't speak like that. You're being selfish." Selfish. The words slammed into me. I'd given up vacations, poured my savings into helping Ethan and Claire, worked overnight shifts until my body broke down, and I was the selfish one. That night, I sobbed into my pillow until my throat went raw. Over the next few weeks, the pain hardened into something heavier. At work, I caught myself snapping at colleagues. At home, I wandered from room to room, restless but unable to do anything. I stopped baking, stopped decorating, stopped answering calls from extended family because I didn't trust what I might hear. I started writing everything down in a journal. Every slight, every sacrifice I'd made, every moment where I'd been there for them. Reading it back was like peeling open a wound, but it also lit a fire. Because the more I wrote, the more I realized how much they had taken me for granted. One night, I tried one last time to make peace. Ethan came by my apartment, dropping off some textbooks he'd borrowed. "Hey," I said quietly, "can I ask you something? Did you know they weren't inviting me to Christmas?" He froze, eyes darting to the floor. "Mia, don't." "Ethan, did you know?" He rubbed the back of his neck, guilt written all over his face. Yeah. Claire mentioned it. I thought Mom would talk to you." I felt my stomach twist. "And you didn't say anything?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Mia, you know how Claire is. I didn't want to cause drama." Drama. That word again. The label they slapped on me any time I dared to ask for respect. I stepped back, shaking my head. "Get out, Ethan." "Mia, I mean it. Get out." He left without another word. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at a pile of unpaid bills. Rent, utilities, medical debt from the time I'd skipped insurance because I was helping Claire. And the rage finally overtook the grief. They had called me selfish, embarrassing, dramatic. But the truth, I had been their safety net, their quiet little donor, their invisible fixer. And the second I wasn't convenient, they cut me off. I remember slamming my fist onto the table and whispering through clenched teeth, "No more." That was the night I stopped crying. That was the night I started planning, because if my family thought I was too working class to sit at their table, then I'd show them just how powerful a working class disappointment could be when she finally stopped giving. And trust me, when I was finished, they wouldn't just regret excluding me from Christmas. They'd regret underestimating me their entire lives. The day I stopped crying, something inside me clicked. I woke up with swollen eyes and a pounding headache, but also with clarity. My family had shown me exactly where I stood in their hierarchy, beneath them, useful only as long as I was silent and giving. But if silence was my prison, then my voice, my choices, were my escape and my revenge. I didn't know exactly what form it would take at first. I'm not the type to scream in public or smash plates just to make a point. No, my revenge had to be smarter, quieter. It had to hit them where it hurt most. Image, reputation, money. Because that's what all of this had been about, wasn't it? Claire wanting to impress Mark's wealthy family. Mom caring more about appearances than her own daughter's feelings. Ethan avoiding drama because it might inconvenience him. They didn't care about loyalty. They cared about optics. So I would give them optics, just not the kind they expected. Step 1. Gather information. I started small. Every time Mom called us, usually to ask about helping with bills for the family cabin, or to remind me that Ethan's graduation was coming up fast, I listened carefully. I noted who they mentioned, where they'd be, what events were coming. It was like piecing together a puzzle. Meanwhile, I began watching Claire's social media like a hawk. She loved to post about her perfect life, engagement parties, bridal showers, dinners with Mark's family. The captions were always dripping with superiority. So blessed to be surrounded by such amazing people. Can't wait to marry into this incredible family. I saved everything. Screenshots, dates, names. Not because I wanted to stalk her, but because I knew sooner or later her curated perfection would have cracks. And the cracks came faster than I expected. One evening, while scrolling through my feed after a long shift, I noticed something odd. Claire had posted a photo of her and Mark at a high-end restaurant, but in the reflection of the mirror behind them, I could see another man at their table. Handsome, well-dressed, leaning a little too close to Claire. Curiosity pricked at me. A week later, another photo, this time at a wine tasting, and again, the same man appeared in the background, his hand barely grazing Claire's waist. I zoomed in. My pulse quickened. Claire wasn't just playing the doting fiancé, she was playing a dangerous double life. For days, I couldn't think about anything else. Was she cheating on Mark? Was she risking everything she'd worked to build, the very image she'd excluded me to protect? I decided to test it. I created a fake social media profile, added Claire's circle of friends, and started following her quietly. Through tagged photos, I pieced together a pattern. This man, his name was Daniel, kept appearing, not always in the spotlight, but close enough to notice. And then came the confirmation. A tagged photo from a friend of hers at a weekend cabin trip. Claire, wine glass in hand, laughing on a couch. And Daniel, right next to her, his arm draped over the back of the couch, behind her shoulders. My hands trembled as I took the screenshot. The same sister who thought I was too much of an embarrassment to sit at a dinner table was risking her picture-perfect engagement with a side fling. That was when the plan crystallized. Claire wanted to impress Mark's family. Fine, I'd let her. I'd let her build it, didn't matter what the whole thing might be, and pulled in every photo, bragging at every party. Step 2. Prepare my foundation. I started quietly withdrawing support. No more emergency Venmo transfers to Ethan. No more picking up bills from Mom and Dad. When they called asking why, I played dumb. Oh, sorry, I'm really strapped right now. You understand, don't you? It was amazing how quickly their tone shifted when I wasn't useful. Calls became shorter. Messages went unanswered. But I didn't care. Every dollar I saved was another piece of my independence. At the same time, I began building allies. Leah, my cousin, had always been sympathetic. I confided in her, not about the revenge, not yet, but about how deeply I'd been hurt. She was outraged on my behalf. Mia, you've been holding that family together for years. They don't deserve you. Her anger was fuel, and it reminded me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I was right. Step 3. Set the stage. I knew the engagement party would be the perfect opportunity. Claire had been planning it for months. A lavish event at a country club. Catered meals, speeches, a slideshow of their love story. She wanted it to be the pinnacle of her social climb, the night Mark's family would finally see her as their equal. And I was going to make sure it was the night everything unraveled. The weeks leading up to it, I played the role of the dutiful sister. I congratulated Claire on her dress fittings, offered polite smiles at planning meetings, even volunteered to help with the party logistics. She accepted my help begrudgingly, probably still embarrassed by me, but too overwhelmed to say no. It was almost funny. She had no idea the very person she tried to erase from Christmas would be standing right next to her when the mask slipped. There were close calls, of course. One night, while double-checking the seating chart, Claire glanced at me suspiciously. "You've been awfully quiet lately," she said. "Not sulking about Christmas still, are you?" I forced a laugh. "Please, I'm over it. You're the bride-to-be. I just want you to shine." She smiled smugly, clearly buying the act. But inside, my heart hammered. If she suspected me, even for a second, the whole plan could collapse. Meanwhile, I dug deeper into Daniel. I tracked down his LinkedIn profile, learned he worked in finance, single, mid-30s. His posts were peppered with subtle flirts at Claire, little comments like, always glowing, or lucky mark. The arrogance of it made my skin crawl, and it made me more determined. The night before the engagement party, I barely slept. My apartment floor was covered in printouts, screenshots of Claire and Daniel, financial records of money she'd borrowed from me and never repaid, a timeline of every sacrifice I'd made for her. It looked like the evidence wall of a detective's office. At 3 a.m., I stood back and whispered to myself, tomorrow, you're going to remind them who I am. Because this wasn't just about exposing Claire's affair. It wasn't just about humiliating her in front of Mark's family. It was about reclaiming my voice. It was about proving that I wasn't disposable. And when the clock struck midnight at that country club, I was going to deliver a truth so undeniable, so shattering, that they would never again underestimate the sister they thought wasn't good enough to sit at their table. The night of the engagement party arrived with a chill in the air. One of those crisp evenings where the wind cuts just enough to make you feel alive. I stood in front of the country club's grand entrance, my heart pounding beneath the borrowed gown I had splurged on. My hands clutched my clutch so tightly, the metal clasp dug into my palm. This was it. Months of preparation, of biting my tongue, of pretending to be the quiet, obedient sister. All of it led to this moment. The building glowed with golden lights, laughter spilling out from the ballroom, and through the glass windows I could see the spectacle Claire had worked so hard to create. A towering floral arch, champagne flutes on every table, a giant screen waiting to play their love story slideshow. She had spared no expense in painting her perfect fairy tale. And tonight, I was going to burn it down. As I stepped inside, the buzz of conversation washed over me. Mark's family was there in full force, his mother in a shimmering gown, his father looking like he'd just stepped off the board of some Fortune 500 company. Their circle of wealthy friends milled about, offering handshakes and congratulations. And then there was Claire. She glided across the room in a silver dress that hugged her body like liquid light, her engagement ring flashing under the chandelier. Her laughter carried easily, high and confident, like a woman who believed the world belonged to her. When her eyes landed on me, there was the faintest flicker of annoyance before she plastered on a smile. "Mia," she said through gritted teeth as she leaned in for a perfunctory hug. "You look nice." "Thanks," I replied, matching her fake smile. "Wouldn't miss this for the world. I meant it." The evening unfolded in a blur of toasts and small talk. I played my role flawlessly, smiling at guests, complimenting Claire's dress, laughing politely at Mark's jokes. But underneath, my pulse raced with anticipation. When the lights dimmed for the slideshow, I knew my window was closing in. This was her crowning moment. The curated photos of vacations, candlelit dinners, posed selfies with captions like forever and always. And then, it was my turn. "Excuse me," I said, my voice steady as I rose from my chair. Conversation stilled. Dozens of eyes turned toward me. Claire's smile faltered. "I just wanted to say a few words about my sister and her fiancé," I began, holding up a champagne flute. My hands no longer trembled. Claire and I have had our ups and downs, but one thing I've always admired about her is her ability to adapt, to juggle multiple things at once. A ripple of polite laughter moved through the crowd. Claire's eyes narrowed. "And speaking of juggling," I continued, my tone sharpening, "I couldn't help but notice she's been juggling more than just wedding planning." Gasps echoed through the room. Claire stiffened. Mia, what are you? I lifted my phone, screen glowing with a photo. The room collectively leaned forward. It was the shot from the cabin trip. Claire, wine glass in hand. Daniel's arm draped casually over her shoulders. The silence was deafening. Mark's face drained of color. His mother clutched her pearls. A murmur spread like wildfire. Claire stumbled forward, her voice breaking. That's not what it looks like. I tilted my head, feigning innocence. Really? Because it looks exactly like what it is. And this, I swiped, revealing another photo of Claire and Daniel at the wine tasting, his hand brushing her waist. Looks like a pattern. The crowd erupted. Gasps, whispers, phones snapping photos. Mark stood frozen, his jaw clenched, eyes locked on Claire with a mixture of fury and devastation. Claire lunged toward me, hissing, "How dare you?" But I stepped back, raising my voice so everyone could hear. "How dare I? How dare you? After everything I've done for you, after you cut me out of Christmas because I wasn't polished enough for Mark's family, this is the truth you've been hiding." Her face twisted in rage. "You're lying. You've always been jealous of me." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Jealous? No, Claire. I'm done being invisible. I'm done being your ATM, your scapegoat, your embarrassment. You wanted to erase me, but tonight, I erased your little fairy tale instead." The ballroom erupted into chaos. Mark's father barked orders for someone to turn the lights back on. Mark himself stormed out of the room, his mother following close behind. Guests whispered furiously, some openly glaring at Claire, others shaking their heads in disbelief. Claire, her silver dress shimmering under the harsh lights, stood trembling with rage and humiliation. And me? I calmly set down my champagne flute, slipped my phone back into my clutch, and walked out of the ballroom without looking back. The cold night air hit my face like freedom. For the first time in years, I felt light. I had carried the weight of their judgment, their dismissiveness, their betrayal, and now I had dropped it right at their feet for the world to see. By the next morning, the fallout was everywhere. Photos from the party circulated online. A few guests had live-streamed my reveal. Claire's picture-perfect image shattered overnight. Mark called off the engagement, returning the ring and demanding answers his pride wouldn't let him forgive. Mom and Dad, they tried calling me, leaving voicemails filled with fury. "How could you do this to your sister? You've ruined her life." But I didn't answer. Because I hadn't ruined her life, she had. I'd simply turned the spotlight on the truth. Claire went silent on social media for weeks. The once constant stream of curated happiness vanished, replaced with nothing but blank space where her empire of perfection had crumbled. Ethan stopped reaching out, too ashamed or too cowardly to face me. And me, I went back to work, back to my patients, back to my small but peaceful apartment. Only now, I wasn't the same Mia they had erased from Christmas. I was the Mia who had stood in a room full of judgmental strangers and ripped the mask off her sister's face. And I was just getting started. The morning after the engagement party, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Missed calls, voicemails, angry texts in all caps, each one more desperate than the last. First, it was Mom. MIA, pick up the phone. What you did last night was unforgivable. Then Dad, you've humiliated this family. Call me back now. And finally, Claire herself. I hate you. You've ruined everything. You'll pay for this. I sat on my couch, sipping lukewarm coffee, scrolling through the barrage. My hands didn't shake anymore. My chest didn't feel hollow. Instead, a strange calm settled over me, like the silence after a storm, when you realize your house is still standing. For once, their outrage didn't control me. It almost made me laugh. They had spent years treating me like an embarrassment, something to be hidden away, and now the whole town was whispering about them. The gossip spread like wildfire. A coworker at the hospital pulled me aside 2 days later, wide-eyed. "Mia, was it true? About your sister at the engagement party?" I shrugged, pretending indifference. Guess people aren't always who they pretend to be. Word traveled beyond our small town. Mark's family had money, connections, and pride. They weren't going to let themselves be humiliated quietly. His mother was reportedly livid, telling anyone who would listen that Claire was a manipulative gold digger. His father cut ties immediately, canceling the wedding venue and demanding back every cent they'd contributed. And Mark? He vanished, packed his bags, moved to Chicago, and ghosted Claire completely. For weeks, Claire tried to salvage her image. She posted cryptic quotes on social media. Sometimes people are jealous of your light, and not everyone deserves a seat at your table. But the comments underneath told the truth. Cheater. Wow, so fake. Poor Mark. Dodged a bullet. Every attempt to control the narrative only dug her deeper. She finally deactivated her accounts altogether. Mom and Dad weren't handling it much better. They blamed me entirely, of course. In their eyes, Claire hadn't destroyed her own life with her choices. I had destroyed it by exposing them. One night, Mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. Her fists pounded on the door until I opened it, and she shoved her way inside before I could speak. Her face was flushed, her voice trembling with rage. How could you do that to your own sister?" I folded my arms. "You mean how could I tell the truth?" "That wasn't your truth to tell," she snapped. "Families keep secrets. We protect each other, even when they make mistakes." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Protect each other? Is that what you call excluding me from Christmas because I wasn't polished enough for Mark's family? Is that what you call telling me I was selfish when I begged you to defend me?" She flinched but didn't back down. "You've always been dramatic, Mia. Always turning yourself into the victim." The words stung, but this time they didn't cut as deep. I leaned in, my voice low. "No, Mom, I'm not the victim anymore. Claire wanted a perfect image, and you all let her step on me to get it. All I did was show everyone the truth. If that ruins her, that's on her, not me." Her eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. "You'll regret this," she spat before storming out. But as the door slammed shut, all I felt was relief. Ethan didn't say much. He sent me one half-hearted text, "You didn't have to go that far." But when I didn't reply, he went quiet. I think he realized he'd lost the sister who used to bail him out. The one who paid his tuition bills and covered his overdraft fees. That Mia was gone. In the weeks that followed, I felt lighter. My phone no longer rang with constant requests for money. I had time to breathe, to cook meals for myself, to decorate my tiny apartment without worrying about dropping everything for someone else's crisis. For the first time, I started putting money into savings. For the first time, I signed up for a yoga class just because I wanted to. For the first time, I chose me, but freedom came with its own strange emptiness. Late at night, lying in bed, I sometimes wondered if I'd gone too far. If maybe there was a world where I had stayed quiet, swallowed my pride, and remained in their good graces. And then I remembered Claire's words. "You just don't fit that image." And I knew there was no world where I could have stayed quiet without destroying myself. One day, I ran into Leah, my cousin at the grocery store. She hugged me tightly. "Mia, you have no idea how many people are proud of you. Everyone's been whispering about what happened, but nobody's blaming you. They're blaming her. It's about time someone stood up to your family." Her words made my chest ache in the best way. For once, I wasn't the embarrassment. I was the one who had the courage to do what nobody else would. As for Claire, the last I heard, she moved back into Mom and Dad's house, tail between her legs. She was unemployed, her reputation ruined, her once perfect engagement reduced to a cautionary tale. And though part of me pitied her, a bigger part of me knew this was justice. Justice for every time I sacrificed my peace for her convenience. Justice for every time she dismissed me as less than. Justice for the Christmas she decided I wasn't good enough for her table. I wasn't cruel. I didn't gloat. I didn't send her messages or rub salt in the wound. Because the best revenge wasn't me screaming from the rooftops. It was me living my life, finally free, while she sat in the ruins of her own choices. The fallout was messy, ugly, and painful. But it was also cleansing. For the first time, I wasn't just existing in the shadows of their expectations. I was standing in the light of my own truth. And that truth? I was never the embarrassment. I was the backbone. And when the backbone finally walked away, the whole structure collapsed. When I think back on it now, it feels almost like I was watching someone else's life. The girl who sat outside that country club months ago, clutching her purse with sweaty palms, terrified of what would happen if she spoke up. That girl feels like a stranger to me. 'Cause I am not her anymore. What I learned from this, what my family's betrayal taught me, is that silence doesn't protect you. Every time I swallowed my pain to keep the peace, every time I wrote another check I couldn't afford, every time I let Claire, or Mom, or anyone else dismiss me, I was digging my own grave. And when they kicked me out of Christmas, when they looked me in the eye and told me I didn't fit the image, I finally realized something that had been true all along. I would never be enough for people who chose to see me as less. So I stopped trying. And in that choice, I found myself again. I didn't just expose Claire to ruin her life. I exposed her because I needed to remind myself, someone who knew her and expected her, that I wasn't powerless. Do I regret what I did? No. Because if I hadn't stood up that night, I'd still be waiting for scraps of affection from people who only wanted me quiet. Instead, I carved out a life where I no longer live in their shadow. I have peace. I have independence. I have freedom. And the best part? Every time I hear through the grapevine that Claire is struggling, every time Mom complains that people whisper about the scandal, I don't feel guilty. I feel nothing. And that's the most freeing feeling of all. Because the truth is, revenge wasn't just about them. It was about me, about healing the parts of myself I had lost, about finally stepping into the light. I was never the embarrassment. I was the one who held it all together. And when I let go, the whole illusion came crashing down. That's my closure. That's my justice. And that's my freedom. So what do you think? Did Claire deserve what she got? Or do you think I went too far? I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you would have done if you were in my shoes. Would you have stayed quiet? Or would you have pulled the mask off, just like I did? And if this story hit home for you, if you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed, hit that like button. It lets me know these stories matter, and it helps more people find them. Don't forget to subscribe, because I've got plenty more stories of justice, betrayal, and sweet, sweet revenge that you don't want to miss. Until next time, remember, sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't just exposing the truth. It's learning to live so well that the people who underestimated you have no choice but to watch from the sidelines.